This is LA Business Spotlight.
Greed is good.
Always be closing.
It's strictly business.
Welcome to LA Business Spotlight. I'm Joel Metzger. We have in the studio today Jen Bilik, who is the founder, owner, and overall head honcho of a company called Knock Knock. Welcome, Jen.
It's good to be here.
Tell us about Knock Knock.
We make witty gift and stationery products, and we also publish books, and we sell them at stores like Urban Outfitters and Barnes & Noble, and basically it's stuff that nobody needs, but hopefully some people want.
That's clear and concise.
I was actually able to give that in an elevator a couple of weeks ago, and I was very happy with myself that I'd finally done an elevator pitch in an elevator.
What if is there an elevator pitch, then there's the elevator get stuck pitch? So you have
Yes.
you're all trapped, and now you got to fill 20 minutes. That's a whole different pitch. Tell us, your products are quirky and whimsical and humorous. Tell us about the writing process, the idea process. Do you have like a writer's room, or does somebody come into you with a great idea?
We, until recently, have generated most of our ideas, actually all of our ideas internally generated and executed. We started off, actually, and it was pretty much just me, even though I had a team of people to help me execute. And certainly on the logistics side, we've always had a robust team. But part of the reason why the brand feels cohesive is that one person was writing all of it for the first 5 years, as well as creative directing all of it. And so there was enough of a foundation that even though we have been trying to create a style guide now for almost a decade so that we could actually, sort of schematize and formalize the dynamics and traits of the brand. We haven't actually done that, but there's enough of a track record and product history that at least for our designers and editors and writers, it has felt clear enough that they could not only learn the brand, but then evolve it. And so now that we have a team of about 5 designers and 4 editors, and then also regular freelance writers and researchers and fact checkers, because a lot of our stuff is what we call humorous nonfiction, where the concept is funny but the execution is straight. We feel very proud of the fact that our information is accurate. But now that we have this team, they are able to evolve, where it was when it was just me. And that's what's exciting now for me to see. And we have a really fantastic publisher. I run Knock Knock with 3 other people, one of whom is our publisher, Craig. And part of the reason why he came on 5 years ago, and we're a 12-year-old company, he came on 5 years ago because my talent tends to be in sort of being I have a great idea, let's all execute on it now. He's much better at bringing out the creativity in others, fostering others' creativity, whereas sometimes my strength of direction can stifle others' creativity. And so for me, it's exciting to watch what the team is now able to do that is different from how I would have done it, and in many cases better than how I would have done it. So I'm now more of sort of an executive creative director. I come in at key junctures and weigh in, and it's actually very valuable because I have what we call clean eyes. I haven't really seen it before. I haven't really been involved with it, whereas, Craig is, more in the trenches than I am, and he can lose perspective, even though he's not as much in the trenches as the editor and designer who are working on it. But I'm able to come from that sort of customer as well as industry experience point of view, and I think provide valuable feedback.
The way you describe the environment, and definitely when I see your products, it seems like the culture at work must be pretty free-thinking and open-ended and fun and kind of happy. How do you curate that kind of atmosphere so that ideas are flowing and people aren't afraid to throw up 10 dumb ideas?
Well, I think again, Craig and then Trish, our VP of brand development, they've been so key in having that freedom. I think I have always, we like to swear a lot, we like to riff a lot, so I think there's a sense of of freedom in terms of being unconventional, and I think that over time we have been able to develop freedom of concept as well, which I think was less so when I was sort of more let's do my ideas, kind of thing. And one of the characteristics of that actually comes from improv, whereas when we're brainstorming, we always try to be in a yes and kind of headspace versus a no but. And it's very easy to get into that no but headspace. And one of the things that I'm always trying to emphasize is let's figure out the what before we figure out the how, or the what and the why before we figure out the how. It can be very easy when an idea is thrown out to start to think of all the stuff that's wrong with it and poke it and think, do we have the resources to do this? Is this going to be too expensive? Is this going to be, are we going to be able to, turn this around in the time frame that we need to turn it around in? And so we try to separate those phases. So the how and the why, the what and the why are different from the how. So first we decide what we want to do, and hopefully we know why we want to do it. And then once that's decided, then you get into all of the steps. And sometimes you can't do it for spring and you have to do it for fall, So in those brainstorming meetings where we're just talking about ideas or developing early on, we always want to be expansive and inclusive rather than the later period where you're editing. One of the ways that I think about writing and all creativity is that first there's a spew where you generate the block of marble, and then there's a sculpt where you sort of cut the basic shape out, and then at the very end you're doing all the little details, which is what I call compose with writing. Why agonize over sentences if you don't know if they're going to be cut yet?
Right. Looking at your website, it completely reflects your product line. The website is equally colorful and whimsical. What do you do to keep that sort of vibe across everything? The website, the product, the promotion, everything.
Again, I wish I could say that we had a formal structure and, that we had developed this formal style guide and this proprietary secret sauce kind of thing. It has been slightly more intuitive than that. And we're very fortunate. I mentioned Trish, our VP of Brand Development, before. She's been with us for almost 10 years, and she and I know how to do our dance so well. And we just know the brand really well. And I think over time, it's sort of like when you get your eyes tested, A or B. The team, we're like, okay, that's not quite knock knock. Okay, that is knock knock, and they start to develop their knock knock nose, with a silent K.
Yeah.
And we just actually launched a rebuild of our website that we're very proud of, and it's at knockknockstuff.com. And a lot of what we thought about is in reference to our previous website, and it was a subtle redesign from a graphic design point of view, but we wanted to make it simpler and clearer. And so it's sort of like with chess pieces where they started off as true sculptures of horses, but over time, or true sculptures of soldiers were the pawns. But over time, you just keep the most salient characteristics, and you're always trying to express in the fewest possible moves, or like a Matisse drawing where he just has the motion of a woman in his hand. And that's what we're trying to do with some of the brand identity, and that we did with the new design of the website. But again, one of these days we're going to put together a style guide, but it really is having strong enough roots and a strong enough point of view in the brand, which really was what I wanted to do when I launched Knock Knock. I felt that we were at a low point in terms of mass retailers and lowest common denominator kind of intelligence and perspective, and the idea that a product had to be all things to all people.
Right.
And I felt like there was room for just a small brand that had a voice and a point of view that maybe offended some people. Like, okay, when did we get the right to not be offended?
Right.
Be offended and go away. Don't buy it. And I wanted to create a brand that had a voice and a sensibility and a point of view, and also that was for intelligent people who maybe knew big words.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes the more specific you are with something, the more universal it becomes because it's true to itself.
That's perfect.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about expansion into this new product line you have called Plum.
LA Business Spotlight is brought to you by Icebox Logic, makers of fine handcrafted audio and video. Go to iceboxlogic.net to see examples. Your company needs to communicate.
Welcome back. This is LA Business Spotlight with Joel Metzger. I'm here with Jen Bilik of Knock Knock and a new company or a new line?
A new brand.
A new brand.
We think of it as a sister brand under actually the Who's There Inc. empire. And it's Plum with a silent B. Apparently we like our silent consonants at the Who's There empire. Plumba.
Yeah.
And we chose that name because we like the idea of plumbing the depths, as well as, if those of you who are familiar with construction practices, a plumb line, which you hang, and with gravity, it gives you a perfect right angle. And it's a line of notebooks envisioned and designed and illustrated by contemporary working artists. And the idea came about actually through the artist who's the creative director of the brand, Tucker Nichols, and the first release of our notebooks includes 5 of his designs. And actually another friend of ours, friend of the company really, had been thinking about starting a notebook line, and she's very familiar with artists in the Bay Area, and she found Tucker. And when she decided not to go forward with the line, we said, can we sort of take it from here? And when we contacted Tucker, we said, we just love your journals. And he said, actually, I have a bigger idea than just journals and notebooks that are pretty. We, artists are such wonderful problem solvers. They use sketchbooks, they use notebooks, they keep track of their ideas. And what if we ask them to really think about, reinvent, and really keep company those people who are using the notebooks and encourage them to be creative and give them permission and space to be creative, but taking away some of the fear of the blank page by having, it's not just a moleskin that you have to, inject everything into. There's a sense of an artist keeping you company and encouraging you within the pages of the notebooks.
That's really clever. Yeah, take away the fear of the blank page, which can really be intimidating for some people. So you have Plum and you have Knock Knock, and they're sisters. How do those two sister brands work together? Do they get along? Are they in competition? Do they wear each other's clothes?
Yeah, that's excellent. We're going to have to run with that and knit a sweater for a notebook that has double K on it or something. We just launched Plum formally in January, but the product is just hitting the marketplace in mid-March. And actually we have our second line is already almost manufactured, and that's going to be introduced in mid-May, and we're in 2014. If anybody ever wakes me up from a concussion, that's what I'll answer. At Knock Knock, we love art. We love pretty things. We love things without words. But the Knock Knock brand, people have become so familiar with it in a certain way that when we've tried to do, say, blank notebooks within the brand, people come to our trade show booths and they say, what's funny about that? Yeah, right. The retailers and the buyers are much more brand aware than, in some cases, the end consumers who are really only aware of brands, if they're on their feet or stitched on their butt, Yeah. But paper products, not as much unless you're a real connoisseur. But we wanted the opportunity to express and explore a different side of all of our interests that is not containable within the Knock Knock brand. And we've always wanted to do blank notebooks and have tried a couple of times and not been successful. And we didn't, the world does not need another blank or pretty notebook line. So when this idea came along, it just felt like a way to bring our experience in manufacturing and logistics and sales, as well as our own, especially Craig and I, this is our baby, Craig, our publisher, and myself, our interest in fine art and in alternative formats and just in paper products. So I think it's the connection to Knock Knock is the intelligence, it's the quality, it's the conceptual underpinnings, and its divergence from Knock Knock is that it's not necessarily about words or humor, even though some of the artists and the titles do have words and humor in them. But it's a more free-form place where we're not writing or dictating the content. It's a place to put your own content.
So you have these two brands. One's funny and whimsical, and the other is kind of artsy-fartsy design, both of which seem to be the other side of the brain from business. It's kind of a left brain, right brain thing. How do you balance the ledger with that as far as?
Good use of the word ledger. One of the great surprises to me as sort of a Berkeley liberal artiste, I grew up in Berkeley, is how much I like business. And I was a complete novice to business when I started Knock Knock, so it was a 90-degree learning curve. And I really thought business was not a creative thing. And it turns out that business is gloriously creative, as is, I think, all problem solving. And, what we think of as more typical creativity as well as business, they're both problem solving. And once you get beyond the basics, everything is subjective, and you really have to think in creative ways to succeed. I say about myself, in terms of what I've been able to do with Knock Knock, that I'm not the best at any one thing. I'm not the best writer. I'm not the best designer. I'm not the best business person, but I have a unique ability to do all of it. With some level of expertise. And for me, the business is kind of a tonic to the creativity, just as when I was in high school, math, I really enjoyed math and science and was good at it. And what I liked about it is that it was something that had an answer, unlike my English literature classes or my, the history classes, the more social sciences and so forth. And I feel that way about the business. I really like going back and forth between the two. And, creativity for its own sake doesn't really have a place in the marketplace. You have to be informed by business dynamics, by the marketplace, by what people, are and are not buying. And that gives you constraints. And I think most people who are professionally creative will tell you that they like constraints because, again, it's a little bit of the blank page. If it's too blank, where do you start? And so if you have a few variables that are already decided, and then you can create around those, it's almost like the side of the swimming pool you can push off of. So I actually really enjoy the combination. I would say the downside over time is now that, when we started, I didn't know anything, so we did whatever we wanted. And sometimes you can know too much. You can say, well, all of the previous products that we've done that have been themed around breakups have never sold. So a breakup-themed product will never sell. And you can fence yourself in a little bit with your own experience, and you get more conservative as time goes on because you're doing bigger quantities and you have a bigger nut to hit every month. And so the trick, I think, is to let the business support the creativity and inform the creativity, but not confine the creativity, especially before the creativity is fully baked.
Well, you've obviously built a company on the business side and on the product side and the brand side. It's definitely of you. It's of your personality and your philosophy and your sensibility. So it's really great to see someone do that. It's kind of the American dream, to have something like that that's really just all coming from you and what you like to do. You already dropped the website and some of the stores, but do it again. How can people find your products?
Sure, online, direct to consumer. Our website is knockknockstuff.com. On Twitter, we are at knockknock, and I am at Jen Bilik, and Facebook is pretty straightforward as well. And in stores, we are in many boutiques around the country. We love our boutiques and our museum stores. And we're also in chain retailers such as Urban Outfitters and Barnes & Noble, Pier 1. And we do a lot of customized products still under the Knock Knock brand for chains like Target and Michaels. And those are other interesting, opportunities and constraints for our creativity to try and think about these different audiences as we do customized product.
It's really great having you come in here. Jen Bilik, thanks for being on LA Business Spotlight.
It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to LA Business Spotlight. If you have a company or service and you'd like to appear on the show, send an email to info@iceboxlogic.net.
This podcast was recorded at the studios of Icebox Logic.